there, thanks for being here. My name is Mile Marker, also known as Madeline. This podcast aims to discover what it means to live authentically. I work to uncover tools to help me be most present in my life. Each episode, we will discuss themes like how to listen to your body, understanding ways to be true to yourself, and learning what deep fulfillment looks like. The episodes will also relate to ideas inspired by my 2024 hike across the state of Arizona. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 16 of Musings with Mile Marker. On my 16th day hiking the Arizona Trail, I hiked 24.5 miles, and the elapsed hiking time was about 10 hours, 25 minutes. I gained 2,600 feet of elevation, and according to my Strava, I burned 2,900 calories. Alright, let's dive right into the hiking audio because the hiking audio is one of my favorite parts of recollecting the trail and putting this podcast together. So let's take a listen. Hello, today's Monday the 25th. It is our 15th day? 16th day? 16th day. We went 25 miles, which was excellent. It did not rain. It rained heavy last night, but our tent did its job and kept us secure and dry. We hiked 25 miles, yeah. My body feels tired.
Nick loves Madeline.
Nick loves Madeline. Thanks, Nick. That's really nice. I was thinking earlier that this trail is the only thing that's truly pedestrian friendly, and that, like, roads really favor cars, and veloways really favor bikes, but the trail out here is really meant for walking, and it's the only place that I've really ever been that's meant for walking, which is really astonishing. I guess a hike and bike in Austin is too, but it's nice being a place where hikers are prioritized, and hikers matter, which is cool. Like, walking is important. Spending time outside is important. Our connection to nature is important. And the weather was exceptional. It was fairly windy the whole day. I wore my long sleeve base layer plus my mid layer for many parts of the day. But we kept trucking along. The terrain finally mellowed out. The last 2 days of Oracle State Park still had a little bit of ups and downs, but today was definitely a little more Jeep road, a little bit flatter. So we managed. We are sleeping in a wash. The tank is really good, so we just filtered some water. We're resting, and then
The wrong turn over.
yeah, the wrong turn was onto a road, which was basically like a Jeep road bypass from the trail, but it seems like a lot of people to take that turn. Interestingly, there were a fair number of like Jeep road crossings that didn't have any markers, which could have used some markers. And then, conversely, there had been other places that had tons of markings that didn't really need them. The rainwater catchment tank today was epic. Super worthwhile thing that they built at the Freeman Road entrance. The Freeman Road bear box had no snacks. I was really hoping for one. They had a bunch of old used Sunny Delight containers, which bummed me out. I would have smashed a Sunny Delight. But tomorrow, we will be in Kearney. We only have 11.2 miles left. So we're going to wake up early, and we're going to try to do 11 miles before 10 a.m., which is a ambitious task, but not impossible. My fueling was good. I've been good on the electrolytes, which I think is important. We do not have enough snacks, but Morgan helped us and gave us a granola bar and a go-go applesauce. So we will definitely make it to Kearney. I might even eat my emergency Marten. We shall see. Any philosophical things we've gathered? Nick, anything philosophical you've gathered? No. I'm about to drink the rest of my pasta water from the Hello Kitty noodles from Sprouts, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm going to eat a Pop-tart. I know I should put the salve on my feet, but I'm really tired, so maybe I won't. We hiked until like 5:45 because we had to get 25 miles in, but it was worth it. Okay. Feeling good. Yeah, honestly in good spirits, mentally acute, like more so than I have been other nights, which is good. Means I'm getting used to all this shenanigans. Okay, to Kearney. Ciao. What you just heard was my audio from the 16th day on the Arizona Trail. And one thing that does still make me smile is hearing the little ad lib of, "Oh, Nick loves Madeline." It does make me happy to hear that and to think about what good times we did have on trail. But one topic that I did want to elaborate on was how I mentioned that trails are for hiking and veloways are for biking, and roads really feel like they are for cars. I have never been to the Netherlands, and I know that there are roads there that feel very bike oriented as well. But at least being in Texas these days, the decisions that are made for transit improvements really feel vehicularly dominated. And biking infrastructure doesn't really make money, and walking infrastructure doesn't really make money, but there's money to be made from cars, so it feels like that's what gets prioritized. But I really did appreciate being on something for so many days that was for walking and that really even promotes the economy for walking. These little gateway towns are places that I would go for resupplies, and there are trail angels that live in these towns, and sometimes we're giving them money to have a place to stay, etc. Additionally, there's gear that we're buying in order to enable this hiking. So there is an economy that is supported for this trail, but it really feels just like such a pure way to experience the world through foot traffic, and keeping the path maintained with the purpose of being for people walking is really nice. But I want to mention a little bit about biking. Around town in Austin, I have seen these white bicycles that are locked up to signs, and they're memorials. They're called ghost bikes, and apparently these ghost bikes actually exist all throughout the world, and there are ghost bike organizations that are maintaining these bikes throughout the world. But the first time I really noticed them or encountered them was since living here in Austin, and I emailed the Austin ghost bike people and said, "Hey, I've seen these bikes around town. I want to help. What can I do to help?" So I got in touch with one of the other volunteers, and over the past few weeks, I've been going to his side yard, and we prepared 2 bicycles. So we got 2 bikes that were from the scrapyard at the Yellow Bike Project, which is a bike co-op where you can get parts and take lessons on bike maintenance, and it's an excellent place. The volunteer and I helped to dismantle these bikes. So take the cables off, take the chain off, kind of just strip the bike down into just the frame, handlebar, and rims. So take the tires off, take the tubes off, etc. And then the next step was to paint it white. And I thought, instead of just dumping loads and loads of white spray paint on it, why don't we hand paint it white first and then spray paint it next, so that it at least doesn't take as many cans of spray paint. So we prepared these 2 bikes, we spray painted them, and then we locked them up at the intersections of where these fatalities occurred. With many cycling fatalities, you don't always know who the person is, and you don't always know the circumstances of the death. But depending on the incident, sometimes we can do some digging and get more information on the person, and sometimes it's an anonymous rider. But assembling the bike, or disassembling and then spray painting the white, creating it this ghost memorial bike, was really meaningful. And we locked them up and put little plastic flowers on them as a way to kind of commemorate this person who passed away on a bicycle. And, it just makes me think a lot about the joys of being on a bicycle and the joys of experiencing a road not in a car. Often I think that we have this kind of bizarre sense of freedom being associated with single occupancy vehicles, which I personally don't really believe. I think it's freeing to be able to move about the world in ways that are not stuck in a car.
But getting involved with these ghost bikes has been meaningful for me for the last couple of weeks, and I hope to maintain my relationship with this organization in the future, and I am going to be hosting a bike building party later this year so that we can prepare more bikes and place them out to commemorate more of the memorials, because while there were only 3 fatalities in 2025, there are still a number of locations that fatalities occurred that bikes do not exist. So we'll do some scouting, see if we can find some poles or some sort of way to affix the bicycles to the landmarks. And I just think that it's nice to be moving our bodies in ways that are not beholden to cars. Another topic that I had mentioned on the hike was water catchment. So the way that we can collect water on the Arizona Trail is many different ways. The first most obvious is a creek. While you're walking on the trail, there are some creeks and springs flowing that the trail crosses or goes alongside. So those are very obvious places because the water is flowing. It's easy to collect. It's often clean because it's flowing, so there's not algae or other things that are building up in it. Hopefully less sediment, etc. Then the next most prevalent was probably cow ponds. Those are also technically referred to as tanks, but they really are just ponds that are intended for cows and cattle to drink from, for people who are raising them. There are also wildlife tanks, which are built into the ground, so to speak, but those are with the intention of deer or wildlife for hunting. So people are building these water tanks for wildlife to come to as an attraction so that people can then hunt them, presumably, which is a little depressing. Like, a deer finds this water oasis and then those are its last moments before someone shoots it. But we drank out of those wildlife tanks often as well, but those sometimes had grody stuff in them. But water is water, and the filters did their job, so thankfully I did not get any waterborne illnesses. But then this other method was these very, very large rain barrels. So I don't know how many gallons this tank was, but I mean, you would probably have to hold hands with 15 people to put your arms all the way around it. It was very, very big. And then it kind of has a funnel angled to the sky so that it can collect as much water that falls, and then there's a spigot. And this tank had water in it. Granted, that's because it was springtime and it had been raining a lot, but I just love the idea of rain catchment. It makes so much sense, especially in places where there is a ton of rainfall in short amounts of time. Like, suck it all up and then store it for when you need it. And there were probably only a handful of rain catchment tanks that I filled water up during this trail, but every time it brought me joy. That was definitely a small thing that made me smile. Because I really just love rain catchment tanks so much, I even got one at my house. So last year, must have been last summer, I had a Texas metal tank installed in my backyard. So I have a personal 200-gallon rain catchment barrel that is fed from one of my gutters. The gutter got rerouted into this tank, and I love it. I primarily use it to water my indoor and outdoor plants. Ultimately, the goal will be for me to set up an irrigation system on a timer so that I can have my outdoor garden to be basically hands-free, but I haven't gotten to that stage yet. So far, I just have the rain tank, and I'm really happy. And that's just something that I've added to my home because I have an affinity for saving rainwater, I guess. One thing I want to wrap up with is that Pop-tarts were some of the best fuel on this trail. That and walking tamales, because, man, Cliff Bars and Pro Bars and just any granola bar of sorts became really boring and tedious and not very exciting for calories. And even though the walking tamales were a little bit on the bulky side and not super calorie dense. They were so delicious. If you don't know what a walking tamale is, it's these little plastic wrapped, non-perishable tamales. So corn, masa with beans and salsa inside. And they were savory, which was also great because so many calories came from sugar, which makes sense because they're easy to digest and are good fuel, etc. But having something savory once in a while was really refreshing. So the walking tamales were delicious, and the Pop-tarts were still delicious, even though they're sugary, even though they're basically like candy. They were just so great. So I was feeling good, and I am not sick of Pop-tarts yet. I don't eat them very often off trail, but it's nice to know that if I really have a hankering, maybe I'll do some sort of long distance bike ride, and then I'll fuel up with a Pop-tart. Actually, that would fit perfectly in my jersey pocket. So you never know. Maybe Pop-tarts are going to get a comeback for my fitness fueling regimen. All right. Take care, y'all.
That concludes this episode of Musings with Mile Marker. Thanks for listening. The intro and outro music are from a track called Wake Robin, composed and recorded by my late grandfather, Bob Ackery. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Polly Morwood. Production and editing of this podcast were done by me, your host, Mile Marker, aka Madeline Ackery. See you next time.